So as you guys already know by now, Rapid Trigger is all over the OSU universe right now. And not only in OSU, Rapid Trigger is also seeing great success in esports, general gaming, and other niches. For that reason, it's now taking a more mainstream form with more and more keyboards adapting Hall Effect. If you don't know what all of this is, you should watch some videos about Hall Effect and Rapid Trigger, but we will start this video assuming that you already know how this works. But just in case for you to have a general idea, they use magnetic switches, which are completely analog. This lets you customize practically anything about your keystrokes. So in OSU this is really helpful because sometimes you're tapping very low on the keyboard but it doesn't get to register anything because you didn't lift high enough. This sounds good and all, but just as it happens in general mechanical keyboards, you have so many switches to choose from. This is also the case for magnetic switches. The only problem is that since this technology was just recently implemented into keyboards, there's not so many switches you can choose from. You have the wooden switches, the Otemu switches, and others that we're gonna see today. But recently there was one that caught my eye. The GEON Raptors. I'm just gonna say it right away. These switches are the best ones money can buy as of February 15th of 2024. And in this video, I'm gonna show you why. I will compare all the switches that I have and at the very end make a tier list. But in order to start, we're gonna have to go to my desk where my Sayo device keypad is. But remember that all switches you will see here are compatible with any form of keyboard that supports Hall Effect. Alright, so my name is Shikke and let's get right into it. Alright, so here we are on my desk, and as you can see, we have the Sayo device with 3 different switches. So the first one is gonna be the default ones that come with the Sayo device. The ones in the middle are the Lecker Wooting L65 and the GEON Raptors, which are the ones that we are gonna talk about today. So there is a possibility that you didn't get these pink switches by default and you got these switches instead. So these are some random Otemu switches, which are also not very good, and I think they are the worst from this list. But there's another possibility that you got these Gateron KS20 instead too, so these are actually good quality, and these are the ones that Wooting uses. So as you can see, the Gateron and the Leckers are very similar because they're both Gateron KS20. Leckers are simply just a recolor. And just for the up close, here we have the GEON Raptors. They look absolutely beautiful. And these are basically the best ones. We're gonna see in a bit why I'm saying this. Alright, so coming back to the keypad, so as you can see, if I press all these keys, they will all light up just normally. But let's go into the option settings to calibrate, and this is where you're gonna actually see the difference. So we're gonna go into button, and we're gonna go into calibration, and you can see that I put the keycaps on the switches is because this is the best case scenario because we want to calibrate the keypad for when we're playing OSU. And if we do it without the switch, it's not a real case scenario. But as you can see here on the screen, these are the switches. These ones are the default ones. These are the Lecker, the Wooting Leckers, and these are the GEON Raptors. So we're gonna start with the key one first. And now it says press button, then release. So we want to press as hard as possible to get the most amount of inputs as possible. So I'm gonna try press, and as you can see, we got around 917 inputs, which it might sound great, but I can tell you already that it's not great. So we're gonna go with the Wooting Leckers now, and let's do it. Okay, we got almost 1500, so it's a big jump in raw data from the default ones to the Wooting Lecker switches, so we can tell that Wooting Lecker switches are actually really high quality. But now, what happens when we go to the, what happens when we go to the GEON Raptors? Yep, we get around 1800. So it's a bit RNG, I think. So I have other Raptor switches that achieve around 2000, and obviously it's a lot better. But you might think like, why does this even matter? And I will tell you why. Because if you have more raw data, then your keypad will be more accurate. Therefore, you can put lower settings in your keypad. So usually you'll see that if I put some low settings on the default switch, then it's gonna start double tapping, or it's gonna stop registering, or while I'm pressing a slider, it will like let go randomly, and I'll have to have like a higher actuation and everything for it to not break. But in the other hand, with the Raptors, since it has way more inputs, I can set the Rapid Trigger way lower, and it won't have these problems. So now I'm gonna speed up this process, and I'm gonna set the MREC Rapid Trigger settings. Alright, so now that I set it up, we're gonna see that if I press down, it's completely fine, but sometimes, oh, you see there, even though I'm still pressing down, it does this, and it just lets go for a second. You see? It basically is its inaccuracy to detect inputs. So even though I'm still pressing down and I'm not making a mistake, the switch is very inaccurate. And that forces me to use higher settings, not because I am bad or I'm doing something wrong, but because the inputs are just not enough. So I'll show you the settings that I use real quick. So these are the default switches, as you see, and if we go to the Leckers, they're gonna be the exact same ones, right? So now we're gonna go back and let's just try to do the same. And as you can see, it doesn't happen as often. So yeah, it's a bit annoying. Maybe if we calibrate again, it will get a little bit better. So let's try to see. All right. And no, yeah, it still happens. It still happens. So yeah, you can see it happens less often than the other one, the other switch, but still is a problem. But now we're gonna try the Raptor switches. Alright, so now I replicated the exact settings, and now we're gonna try the Raptors, and as you can see, it doesn't happen at all. Alright, so I have a problem, and it's that when I tap on this one, the lights are not that visible because, well, the switch is a little bit black and dark, so you cannot really see it that well. But as you see, nothing else compared to the Lecker switches, and we're talking about the same exact settings, right? If you see this one, it's super bad. Like, what is this? Like, what am I watching? What is this? And now this one is just completely fine, as you can see. So yeah, that's basically the difference that I was talking about, and this is why you should buy these switches. So yeah, basically these switches are the best ones, period, you can get for OSU at the moment at least, and no wonder people like Lifeline are using them. So if you're having problem with your input, like the problem I just showed, or double tapping, or misinputs, or things like this, then you might want to consider buying these switches that are very not expensive, and you just get so much value. These are the switches that I could find with the most amount of raw inputs, and I just want to show you guys, if you have this switch, you are screwed, because this switch actually just fucking sucks. So let's go to calibration and let's go to key 1, and if we press here, we see that it absolutely sucks. Oh my god, 191 inputs, 191 inputs, guys. That's just very, very, very bad. So if you're someone that bought the SIO devices and still using these switches, just don't. Just get something good for yourself and stop using these shitty switches. Oh my god. And now for the Leckers 45, the ones that are a little bit lighter, the Woodings variation of the Gatoron KS20, we can see that it still gets about the same as its blue brother, so I'll say it's pretty good, pretty decent, not like this red piece of shit. Oh my god. Alright guys, so there is one more that I almost forget about, but these are basically the KS20, the original switches from the Lecker switches, the KS20, so we're gonna see how they perform, but my prediction is that they're gonna be about the same as the Wooding switches. So let's see how many inputs, and yes, it's 1400, so it's actually exactly the same as the Lecker switches, which I guess makes sense since they are all the Gatoron KS20. It means that if you got these ones by default, you are very good to go, but if you have these ones or these POS, then you might want to replace them ASAP, because they might have been giving you problems and you haven't even realized, or you have been blaming the keypad instead, when it's actually just the switches that are bad. Alright, so this is what the tier list looks like. So yeah, that's basically it.